It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that Potograph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 139 of Let Me Get That Potograph. You know, I really need to come up with a new intro now since I do have a co-host. But
we had one. Yeah, we had one for a week, and it worked out well, and then we went back to the old one the week after.
Yeah, so I should probably stay more on top of that. But as always, my name is the D Agent. Joining me is my awesome co-host, Mr. Scott Rappaport. Scott, what's good, my man?
Oh, living the dream, working on a whole bunch of stuff because I got a wedding coming up this weekend I got to go to, and I was asked to sign a document at the wedding, so I've been working on what signature I want to use. And I'm probably going to have to give a speech. And the only thing that I really just want to do, I'm just going to walk up there and I am going to start doing a version of the Aristocrats, and I'm going to keep going until somebody stops me. And if it's, if it's 10 seconds in, that's fine. If it's like half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, I can keep going with that.
Just promise me you videotape it.
You know what? At some point, there's probably going to be a videotape of it. We've always wanted to turn this into a roast, and I actually looked into getting Gilbert Gottfried to do a remote. It was too expensive.
Yeah, he's probably on Cameo cheap though. Lots of them are probably.
Cameo's one thing. I want him to actually come on like live and do like full on roast set.
Of course. You might be surprised that Gilbert Gottfried's asking great these days, but who knows? I love them happily ever after, so I'm a fan. But welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode and a jam-packed episode. Man, Scott, it is wild in the hobby right now, but I think there's nowhere better to start than just some absolutely incredible and amazing news, and that is baseball is back.
Unless you're Fernando Tatis, in which case it's not.
Yes.
How?
What?
How does this happen? We'll get into the rest of baseball in a minute, but look, this is the big breaking news from from the other day. Tatis broke his wrist, and
in the offseason.
I don't get it. So you have Tatis breaking his, he's out. There were some it may or may not need surgery. It probably will. He'll be out for like 3 months. Yeah. I don't think he's played a full season yet.
No.
But then on the other side of the coin, Pete Alonso, turns out he was in a massive like rollover. Dude's car rolled over 5 times or something like that. And everybody that was in the car walked away.
Yeah.
So he's playing. So maybe all the Pete Alonso I've been sitting on since 2019 is going to start coming back to.
That's all he needed to get some attention is buy a car that's safe and flip it a couple times, and then, hey, get some attention for yourself. But, Pete Alonso walking away from a crash like that. And then Tatis, man. Jesus Christ. I don't know. I'm assuming something got mixed up between him and his agent. And his agent told him that the offseason was going to last a lot longer. So he assumed, fuck it, I'll do whatever I want. Broken wrist, who cares? But Jesus, bro. Like, seriously?
I want to know how it happened because, you remember, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that, Jonas Cespedes, got hurt riding horses on a ranch or something like that, or stepped in a hole or, broke his ankle or something like that and wound up.
Well, they have the stuff written in those contracts now. You can't do, someone like Tatis, I guarantee you, Tatis can't do things like ride a motorcycle, skydive, things like that without clearing it front. And people laugh at riding a motorcycle. I'm not joking. Look at contracts. There are rules in that he would have to get permission from the team to do a lot of off the field stuff when you're someone like him, especially somebody that apparently is turning out to be what looks to be fragile. Obviously, we don't know what happened. This could have been as nasty as Pete Alonso, and he just walked away with a broken wrist. We don't know what happened to it. But the good news is in baseball, apparently you don't have to win anything, and you really don't even have to play for modern card values to matter.
No, exactly. And obviously Mike Trout is a great example of that. Granted, hold on. Look, Trout's won a bunch of MVPs. He's pretty much won. He's won everything except for a Gold Glove and a World Series. And I think eventually with the moves that the Angels have made,
they'll get there.
I think they're going to get there. And
but there's other players that I can think of too that have just that are frail, that are fragile, that just get this hype in this industry, and it's in baseball. It's in baseball only that I see it. That you don't have to. The accolades don't matter as much anymore as the hype. At least from what I see. And I mean, Tatis is a prime example. Go look at his card values. That broken wrist slowed nothing. Another injury to Tatis did not drop his card values at all. It did not drop any hype at all. All it did was everyone that makes a blanket statement that this guy's going to be a bust with no explanation behind it so they can sound like they were right. It just gives them a reason to say, hey, I was right on this one.
Except, well, here's the thing, though. Injuries did affect Acuna.
They do, yes.
And the card values.
Yes.
Now, and here's the question. Acuna's got a World Series ring right now.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, had he not gotten hurt and had the Braves not made, certain moves to compensate for that, would they have won the World Series?
Yeah. And I don't think his card values also would have gone down if he had not been in the same area as Soto blowing up at the same time. You had so many other people in the draft classes around him that were blowing up at the same time. He was the one that was getting hurt at the worst possible times.
Yeah, I do. That 2018 rookie class was no joke.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, since, baseball is back now, do you see Isaiah Kiner Falefa?
Yes.
Dude gets traded. I love it.
I'm just clapping for that you nailed the name. So,
I know. Thank you. Dude gets traded to the Twins, comes out and says, "Oh man, I'm so happy to be here in Minnesota. It's such a great organization." And then like 15 hours later, he's in pinstripes in New York. So I don't know, and then all of a sudden, comes out with a statement, hey, I've always wanted to be like number 2.
Yeah.
And there are so many jokes I can make about him being number 2.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's one of those things that's like, okay, this is professional sports, but my thing is, and the same thing happened in basketball. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, got traded 24 hours after he got traded, and we said the same thing. But it's like I'm thinking now that all these guys are going to have to wait. Like you get traded, don't make a statement right away about it.
And
wait
definitely don't say that you've always wanted to play there because and make it sound like this is home.
He didn't say he. I don't think he said he always wanted to play in Minnesota. What he said was it was a great. They were a great organization. Yes. He's really excited to be there. Yeah, and I think it's appropriate. I think it's great. But
it is.
Somebody obviously was less excited about him being there, and it was their general manager who sent him away.
Yep.
Well, but here's the thing, though. I think his card values and what he's so for being with the Yankees, as long as he plays well, is I think it's better for the Kiner Falefa collectors.
Yes.
With him being in New York than it is with him being in Minnesota, because Minnesota is one of those places where, and no offense to anybody who's in Minnesota, but like that's where you send somebody who you want their card values to die. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they win a World Series. They can be the best team in the league. It's still Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
So you wind up in a weird situation. And then on the other hand, and I'm going to bring up, and this is off baseball for a second, but with with the card values dropping with injury, talk about Florian Wirtz.
Yes. Another great example.
And I can pronounce his name, but there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to pronounce his team. Dude tore his ACL, and guys have been spending like boatloads of money on his stuff. And granted, he doesn't have a lot. Topps Chrome Bundesliga and Max Attack and a couple of Topps Now cards, but his stuff has been selling strong. And gets hurt, and the last 24 hours it's still selling strong. That's one of those things that I know you soccer too, but
big time.
So baseball, I'm excited for it to be back. It's a shortened spring training. Yeah. They're going to play all 162 games. I have no idea what's going to happen beyond that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good free agents that are still out there. My man, Anthony Rizzo, is still out there. I don't believe he's signed anywhere yet.
Yeah. There's a ton of big moves that I think that are going to happen. But yeah, I'm just excited for baseball to be back. I'm not a huge, baseball is not one of my big sports to watch. Now, my son, obviously I coach, and help coach a ton of his teams. We've got our travel practice tonight. I'm big into baseball, just don't have a big team anymore since the Marlins killed my soul in the 90s and early 2000s. It literally, I'm not joking. I used to watch baseball all the time. The Marlins from.
You want to talk about Marlins killing souls?
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong diehard Cubs fan. And that's the thing, we go back to the Bartman game.
Yeah.
And that was against the Marlins.
It was.
So yeah, I don't even get me started about the Marlins.
But I am glad that it's back and everything. I think it's gonna be awesome. But I'm happier for the hobby because I do think if this lockout had pushed for a long time, if all this stuff had gone on, the baseball hobby would have taken a very big hit. I think the prospecting market would have blown up. But I'm glad that we don't. I'm just glad we don't have to deal with all the BS from a potential lockout and what it could do to products, etc.
Well, but here's what I have been seeing though. During the lockout, when spring training was supposed to start, pitchers and catchers report towards the beginning of February, the hobby started picking up again. Mm-hmm. And when Series 1 came out, obviously everybody's chasing Wander Franco rookies.
Yes.
The other stuff, the older stuff was starting to pick up from the normal off season. Mm-hmm. I don't think the lockout had any effect on the hobby.
I don't think it didn't either because I think everyone thought it was going to come back. I'm just saying I'm glad it didn't lock out because if it did lock out for 6 months, let's say, if it was a very abbreviated season, I do think there would have been an effect. I just don't think anyone believed it. I just don't think anyone believed that it was going to last that long because I think everyone knew that no one was stupid enough to let that happen.
Yeah, well, I would have been curious because the lockout affected anybody who was on the 40-man roster.
Right.
And that included a lot of the prospects that everybody was high on. The Marco Lucianos, the Julio Rodriguez's. Yeah. Those guys would not be playing in the minors this year, no matter what, because they were on the 40-man roster.
Right.
So you're not going to, and I think it would have been great for minor league baseball because people are still going to want to see baseball and they're still going to, if that was the only game that was available, they were going to go. And I think some of the prospects that were not on the 40-man roster, their values in the hobby, I think would have gone up because they'd be getting a lot more attention.
Which you saw him. You're seeing him right now get a ton of attention. The Marcelo Mayer that just the Superfractor auto that just sold, 133, I think, $1,000,
which is absolutely insane.
Nuts.
I mean, I would equate that. I would equate that to the guy that, because again, you don't know.
Yeah.
It's the guy, whoever bought it is clearly speculating. Marcel may turn out to be a complete and utter bust, and all of a sudden it's I don't want to say it's a $50 card. It's still a super fractor.
Yeah, right.
But it could be like a $1,000 card. A couple of years from now. I put that along the same level as the guy who bought Tom Brady's last touchdown ball.
Yes,
and like 24 hours later, Brady comes out of retirement. Because
Brady needs to start. All right. Now, when they gave the football away and all that stuff, they had to hook the guy up with. Brady hooked the guy up with an NFT, all that type of stuff. Remember, Brady needs to do something for this dude. I know that Brady had nothing to do with the auction and nothing to do with all this. The auction house or somebody needs to do something for that guy.
Well, we know the auction house isn't going to do anything.
No,
but
they're not going to do shit. But
Brady could load this guy up with anything, and it's not going to cost him a dime.
Exactly.
Not that big of a deal, but I think he came back. There's one of two reasons he came back. Either 2 months of retirement, he was really sick of seeing Giselle every day, or even with all his money, he realizes that he's not going to be able to afford gas for his car.
Right. Yeah.
So he's got to come back and play.
Yeah, premium's expensive in Florida, man.
It is. Well, it's not even that. It's just expensive everywhere. But yeah, so baseball, I'm excited to see back. I'm really curious to see what is going to happen, with the abbreviated spring training. And we know these guys are all, it's not like it used to be where, they took the complete off season off. And, a lot of these guys went on drinking binges and, reported to camp,
wrist. They got really ready for the season.
Well, but who knows? Maybe he broke his wrist. Maybe he broke his wrist taking batting practice in a cave.
Yeah.
We don't know. And if he was doing it, if he broke it doing something to keep in shape or to keep game ready, maybe he had somebody pitching to him and he just checked a swing and it broke. We don't know. And I'm hoping it's not something, he doesn't have something in his, in his genes that, make him predisposed. And if he did, he got it from his mom, because his dad certainly never had these
right.
problems, during his career. So blame her, if that's the
blame
case.
the mom.
Blame the mom. It's her fault.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not like it used to be where, guys report to camp, 30, 40 pounds overweight, looking like, everybody coming in looking like, Prince Fielder.
Right.
And, even after last season, look what Vlad Jr. did. He dropped a ton of weight, he put on a ton of muscle, and he did it all during the off season.
Yeah, it's nothing like it used to be. The abbreviated spring training, I don't think is going to have an effect on it. I think we're going to have a great baseball season, but I think we're going to also see a ton of moves. I'm excited to see what these opening day rosters look like. I think that's going to affect a lot of people's card values. A lot of people are going to get some increases. Some are going to get some decreases. There's a lot of big moves still to be made. I'm sure by next week we'll know where a lot of these guys, at least some of the big ones, are going to be. But baseball is back, guys. So all you baseball fans that I've been talking to, whether it be on Hobby Hotline, Let Her Rip, or here on the show, you can rejoice. You can calm down. Baseball is back. You can keep your subscription to MLB Network, and you will be getting some cards. So welcome back, baseball. But I want to move on now, because like I said, we got jam packed show today. And last week I made a couple of just in passing statements, and I did not know that this is what it was going to amount to. But I made two statements. One, that there was a website called zerocoolcards.com, had something to do with Fanatics, that was going to be launching, and it has launched. And I also mentioned that I thought one of the biggest areas of growth in the hobby was celebrity non-sport cards. And sure enough, what did Zero Cool Cards turn out to be? It is Fanatics' new venture, where it is non-sport cards. It is going to be anything from entertainment-based to musician-based to their first release, which has been nothing short of polarizing, where they took...
I believe the term that was used was bullshit cash grab.
Yes, that I've seen that used a lot, and I'd love to dive into that statement here in just a moment, because that's so freaking stupid. But the initial release has been nothing short of polarizing, taking Gary V's NFTs, his V friends, and turning them into trading cards in boxes. Now, this was a very, very limited release with 4,000 boxes. They did a blind Dutch auction where the clearing price ended up being $2,100. And the secondary market right now just averaged the last four sales before we were recording, and they're selling for over $4,000. So the resale value is incredibly high on this initial release, but there's a lot of misconceptions on what Zero Cool Cards is that I want to dive into. But Scott, when you saw Zero Cool Cards and everything, what did you think?
Well, I do want to touch on that statement about it being a bullshit cash grab. Let's remove the bullshit from it, because I think it's legit. I think it's a legit product. 100% cash grab. There's no question about it.
Are you saying? Hold on. Before I want to discern what you're saying here. When you say cash grab, are you talking in terms of this release with Gary V, or because Zero Cool Cards is now a brand? It is it's not this release. It's going to encompass eventually thousands. So are you talking about the entire product line or this release?
I'm talking the entire product line.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's not, you're not reliant on certain things, athlete performance, how good a rookie class is, or anything like that, where you're printing cards anyway.
Sure. This
is basically, Fanatics saying, all right, well, who can we get that is going to sell at, ridiculously high prices? Now they're going to have to put out some money for it. But here's my question with the Gary V release.
Uh-huh.
So these are all the V friends that
the NFTs.
The NFTs. Once he sold those NFTs, he's no longer the owner.
Right.
So did each of the people that bought these NFTs that they turned into cards get compensated for the rights to use that image as part of this set?
Good question, because they would either have to, or the fine print on the VFriends NFT would have to, because those VFriends NFTs came with a lot more than just a picture of a cat. I'm talking about, like, the V whatever experiences and all that stuff that he does in that fine print. If it's set, I'm sure somewhere he probably protected himself, saying that he can still use the likeness, just not the NFT in some way, shape, or form. But if not, then you would think they'd have to. That's a question, and I have read about 1 million threads on this. I have not seen that question come up. That is a great question,
and that's just me thinking from the business side of things. And so here's my question: when Gary Vee started this whole NFT thing, I'm not entirely sure that the whole zero cool cards concept was in discussion.
No.
So it's very possible that he may not have put that in the fine print. And I would be, and if that's the case, and if there's no compensation going to the people that own the NFTs now, I'd be royally pissed, because
I'd be royally on the phone with a lawyer.
Even if it is in the fine print, I would still be royally pissed, because putting all these out devalues.
Yes.
It devalues the NFT.
100%.
So I'm curious as to, how that played out to the people that, spent ridiculous amounts of money on, Gary Vee's little doodle drawings that he did.
They were
probably did in the middle of a meeting when he was bored.
If he wants to make some cool ones, just hire my son. He makes nicer ones, but whatever.
I'm trying to think of the different aspects to it.
See, I look at it, and that's interesting, because that is not the direction I thought that you would have on this. So that surprised me a little bit. And I kind of have a different feel on what this is. Now, I do think, I 110% think that this initial release and using Gary Vee and using that name was all done as a cash grab and to garner massive attention, because Gary Vee is one of the most polarizing people, period, especially when it comes to the hobby. There is a subset that absolutely despises him, and there's a subset that likes him. And so they knew that this would garner massive amounts of attention. So I do think that using him as the initial one, making it so super limited, capitalizing on his NFT, pumping and everything right now, I do agree that probably more is that of a cash grab. But when I look at zero cool cards as a whole, I liken it as them doing kind of what Leaf does with Pop Century. I think they because they've already stated in their press release, they're going to be doing releases on legendary musician sets, legendary TV show sets, all types of things like that, where it really sounds like an expansion of Pop Century under the Fanatics name. And if that's the way that they choose to go, then I think it's brilliant, because in the past, you've seen that Pop Century is shot up in value, but you've seen the Jay-Z cards from Topps, any celebrity that's in stuff.
Well, Pop Century is shot up in value because, Brian Gray has done a really good job getting really good names into that set.
But it's shown that the market is there. And so I see Zero Cool Cards as their way of distancing. I don't think they wanted to put it under the Topps brand. And so if you're going to do, because then you're kind of jumping into then what's Allen and Ginter for anymore?
It's also possible that Fanatics, had this in the works prior to their acquisition of Topps.
Exactly.
And that, this would have been their first foray into actually printing cards.
And so but my main thing there is I guess it's too early for me to say if I think it's a cash grab or not. Now, if every single one of these releases, if they're going to backtrack from what they originally said, and every single one of these releases is going to be one of these absurdly rare, insanely high, just absolute total nonsense just for the high-end collector type of stuff, yes, I think it's more of a cash grab. If this ends up being something like a Pop Century or something where we get shit, dude, as a former touring musician, if you give me a set of cards where it's classic musicians from all genres across the country and sets I can buy, I'm ripping that wax like crazy. And so, it's a little too, I want to see where they go with the future releases, but the initial release did come off as more of like a cash grab to me. And I think that it is a rare instance where Luber and them failed a little bit because they didn't explain it well enough to the average collector of what this is. Because a lot of people think this is all NFT based, or that this is all high end crazy stuff.
And I'll tell you, I initially thought it was all NFT based.
And that's my point. And you're somebody that does your research, that knows, you're not going to just spout out and just go talk about something that you have no clue about. And so I think that they failed in giving a long-term vision on what this is and focus solely on that initial drop first. I'm hoping that they don't wait long to give us that answer, because that's going to make it to where I decided, at least in my opinion, if it's a cash grab or if this is them setting up their set of the future of a new area in trading cards.
Well, I think if they release one product a month or one every other month, kind of on a regular basis, I think that would be enough. But I've got more questions. Uh-huh. So the initial release was what, 4,000 boxes?
Yes.
And they sold for they wound up going for $2,100. Mm-hmm. Secondary prices, is up higher. How many of those boxes do you think are actually going to get opened?
Outside of the ones that they sent to a couple of influencers, I'm not sure.
Well, but those were designed to be open.
Yes,
it's just to show off the product. It's a little, it's a little different. And
no, I was just joking there.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But then I want to know, they're gonna, if they're gonna do, musicians and TV shows. Mm-hmm. Here's what I would like to see. All right. And this will have me on board, 100%. I want to see them bring back rap packs.
Yes.
From the 90s.
Yes.
And I know it's not, they'd have to probably buy the rights to the name and all that.
Whatever.
And I want to see an Eazy-E cut autograph in there. Because I would go after that card 100%.
Oh, I'd fight you for it.
And the other one I want to see is I want to see them do a set from the movie that probably had the absolute greatest cast of all time.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
No.
Oh.
DC Cab.
Yes.
This was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. It has an awesome cast.
Legendary.
To do something like, you got Mr. T, you got Gary Busey, you got Paul Rodriguez, you got Bill Maher, you got Marsha Warfield, you got Adam Baldwin, the one who's not one of the brothers.
Right.
Yeah, Max Gale's dead, but you probably find an autograph somewhere. But you have just an absolute all-star cast. The movie obviously bombed at the box office because nobody has. I own several copies, and I'm probably the only one. But this was one of the greatest movies of all time growing up. Yes. Absolutely ridiculous plot. And, just, the way it ended,
yes.
Irene Cara was in there. I mean, it's come on, she did some of the music for the movie too. So it spans multiple, with everybody who's in the different casts. They had, actors, comedians, action people. I think it would make for an absolutely, Whitman Mayo. How did I leave out Whitman Mayo?
Yes, there you go.
Mr. Rhythm, how did I leave him out? But that would be an awesome product. I would totally buy into that.
And that's where I hope they go with it. Hey, guys, if you're listening, Luber, anybody out there, Emily, anybody out there, if you guys are wanting to do an old emo revival scene from the 2000s, hit me up. I'll sign some cards. I'm down. But, the possibilities just seem endless to me with this. And I think it could be really cool. I want to see where they go with it. The initial release, like I said, I think was a fail in terms of showing what it could be. But maybe this is what it is. Maybe that is what it's going to be. They said it wasn't, but we'll see.
Only time will tell.
And welcome back, everybody, to episode 139 of Let Me Get That Potograph. And it is time now for the segment that has taken the nation by storm. That's right. It's time for Movers and Shakers. And Scott, we got a jam-packed show this week, so we'll limit it with one each this week. So I'm going to let you kick it off. Give me your mover and shaker for this week.
All right. My mover and shaker this week is Fernando Tatis Jr. moving and shaking his way to the DL. No, I'm totally kidding about that one.
He ain't moving that wrist.
No, yeah, he's definitely not moving that wrist. So I'm going to go with a guy who we talked about earlier in the baseball is back segment. And that is Isaiah Kiner Falefa. I think he would not have been my mover and shaker had Minnesota not traded him to the Yankees. And like he said, he wanted to be like number 2. And he is either going to make his own identity there, and he, his values and, what his resale is card wise, is going to wind up going through the roof, or he will in fact become number 2.
I'm not too familiar with him. Personally, he is someone that I'm not 100% familiar with, but in the last couple of days, I've learned a little bit more about him.
He has been a very solid player for the Rangers the last, couple of years. His, rookie cards in 2018. And the problem with him was that he played with the Rangers.
Right.
And granted, Dallas, look, they're in Dallas, Arlington, but it's the Dallas-Fort Worth market. It's not exactly a small market team.
No,
but nobody outside of that market really cares about any players that play for the Rangers.
And I can attest for that because right here in North Carolina, the minor league games I go to are the Ranger affiliates, like the Hickory Crawdads, etc. When I see the Rangers go up through the minors, I see all of them, and there is no demand for it.
No, and they've got some really good players, and I feel bad for the Corey Seager fans.
Yes,
who they offered him big money, he came. That's fine, but it doesn't matter. The Rangers could have had Mike Trout,
right,
and it would affect the values. Now, the Angels, they're not exactly a well followed team, but they're still in a big market. They're always going to be second fiddle to the Dodgers in that area. But with Kiner Falefa going to the Yankees, puts him in a big market and puts him on a very high profile team. Mm-hmm. And as long as he plays well, he's got nowhere to go but up.
Now, is he slotted into being the starter at this moment now? Is he brought there to start? Okay.
They brought him to start. They also got rid of, they got rid of Gio Urshela. I can't believe they got rid of Gary Sanchez. I did not see that coming. And they did not like Gleyber Torres at shortstop. So he is back at second base.
All right.
So Kiner Falefa is the starter at shortstop for now. Nice. He also is capable of playing third base. He played third base all last year. But he is a natural shortstop. And I didn't realize this. He has 72 games at catcher.
Wow.
Yeah. So will probably be, like the emergency backup catcher if by some small miracle both catchers on the roster get injured.
Well, that's interesting. Then learning that from you now, I have to agree with that. I have to agree with that as a great pick for movers as a mover because,
thank you.
Like you said, he's going to New York. He's going to get a lot more attention. Slated to start. Good player that can only go up. Shortstop position that people love to collect. That values for shortstops, they tend to really, really stay. And that's what people chase after. And so I love that pick. I
he's
think
definitely
great
and given the fact that he was traded twice in 24 hours, he has definitely been a mover.
He's been moving. That's for sure. He's been packing, moving, and everything. So great mover and shaker.
All right, Drew, who do you got this week?
All right, I'm switching up sports. We're going back to one of my favorites, of course, the NBA. But I'm going with somebody that I understand why he doesn't get the attention that I think he deserves, but he's forcing you to pay attention to him now. And I think he's going to be a very good player in the future. And my mover this week is Golden State Warriors guard Jordan Poole. 28th pick in 2019 draft, one of the greatest draft classes of all time, at least in my opinion, top to bottom. This year, averaging 17 points a game, 45% from the field, 36% from three, and he put up 30 points this week, put up 21, also 20. This kid, he's a deadly shooter, fits into Golden State perfect. I love this kid. I think he is so underrated, and his cards have not caught up to his performance yet. I see Golden State going far. He's going to be a reason. His minutes are increasing like crazy. He's up to high 20s, low 30s now. They're also experimenting with Clay, Curry, and him in the starting lineup. That's a deadly shooting lineup. Love Jordan Poole.
I like that pick. I've been sitting on a lot of Jordan Poole stuff since the 1920 season. Yeah. When he was, when his rookie stuff came out. I'm curious, and I know, they don't play the same position, but I'm curious as to how his minutes are going to be affected when James Wiseman comes back, which is getting closer and closer.
Yes.
He's been playing in the G League to get some active minutes, and I think he's coming back soon.
I think that's why you're seeing the Warriors experiment with these lineups. I think
absolutely.
And you're seeing that like that Clay, because if you put Clay, Curry, and Poole out there, you can fit Wiseman in that lineup.
Well, and they don't have a big man out there right now. Wiseman, is the big man that they were banking their future on. So, but then you also, my concern about Poole is that Golden State is also loaded. Aside from Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, they are loaded with younger, solid players. Jonathan Kuminga. That's who I was going to bring up. They've got to get these guys minutes too, otherwise they're never going to develop.
And see, that's where his ceiling is interesting to me, is because he plays for Golden State, and like you said, there's so many players there, not only established stars but possible future stars.
Well, my question is, who is going to get traded?
Yes.
At some point this offseason, they are so loaded, and they're going to be, they're going to have a 25 to 30 draft pick, or for this draft. So what do? Are they going to wind up? Are they going to trade for players? Are they going to trade for draft? To move up in the draft? We don't know. But somebody, one of these guys, it's not going to be Steph. It's not going to be Curry. Klay Thompson. Yeah. It's not going to be Wiseman. But Poole, Kuminga. But the guy from Baylor who's been playing well too. Him and Kuminga came up, together. So one of those guys is not going to be with Golden State after the season is done.
Right.
The question is who, and, what are they going to do? What's their replacement going to be, and how is it going to affect Poole?
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid question. And it's Moses Modi that you're thinking of. Kuminga and Modi were their draft picks this year, but I agree with you. Poole, one of these guys is going to have to be traded because, like you said, they're so loaded. Kuminga's proven he's the real deal. Poole's proven he's the real deal. Modi's playing well. Wiseman, like you said, they banked on their future. Yep. Then you've got Curry, you've got Clay. These guys got to get paid eventually. These guys are going to warrant being paid eventually. They can't pay everybody. Like you said,
Curry's already on a max contract, isn't he?
Yes. And so, but you've got your draft pick. Let's face it, like you said, it's going to be late round, so it's not very enticing. So, some of these guys are going to get traded. It is going to be interesting. I think for Poole and his value, since that is my mover this week, I think trading him would be no problem for me whatsoever, as long as you don't send him off into somewhere where he can disappear. But you put him on a team like say the Heat, for example, a team like somewhere like that, Chicago, any of those type of teams.
Well, if they wind up trading for draft picks, they're not going to any of those teams.
Right. But I'm saying
those teams are going to be late round anyway.
Yeah. But if you can put him onto a team, a decent team with a decent following, I see Jordan Poole as a potential, maybe not a number one forever, but I see him as an incredible number two on your team.
Yeah. The big fear is that he winds up going to like Orlando.
Exactly. But we shall see. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of Movers and Shakers. So, Scotty, boy, let's move on now to something interesting that I saw on Twitter the other day. And Ryan Cracknell, great guy, one of the best in the hobby. But Ryan had put out a tweet that showed the Mick Schumacher base card for Topps Chrome F1. F1 Chrome just was released. And last year, Mick Schumacher, of course, was in 2020. Well, he had no rookie card badge because he was on the F2 circuit.
He's in the F2 circuit.
F2 circuit, so he didn't have a rookie card badge. This year in 2021 Topps Chrome, obviously he's moved up. He's a head driver, so now he has a rookie card logo. Obviously, that sparks the debate, just like Wander Franco's Bowman's Best did and everything else, about his rookie card. And do people consider this his rookie card? And Ryan posed the question, and I thought it was a good one. Does anyone actually consider the rookie card logoed one to be the rookie card? Now, I find this really interesting, Scott, because this is a brand new market. This is a market that is a year old. I mean, really, let's face it. I mean, there were cards, but this is a year old. They've never had these issues before. This is the first time it's come up. Nothing's really been truly established to where it's, it's canon, so to speak, And so,
but that's actually not true. Now, as it pertains to Formula One,
that's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
F1.
But here's the thing, though. As it pertains to the hobby, there is absolutely precedent.
Yeah.
And it's been brought up in a lot of the chats that are popping up, and especially, the one you reference in particular, that there is precedent to what this is. The 2020 Topps Chrome, where he's the, Formula 2, would be akin to a Bowman First.
Yes.
We've talked about that. Now, I just want to bring this up. You can argue that the Wander Franco Bowman's Best, could be considered rookie because it did come out, even though it doesn't have a rookie logo, it did come out after he had played,
right.
In the majors for, at least one game.
Yeah.
Now, I don't consider it a rookie.
Right. I don't either.
Most people, most of the serious people in the hobby don't consider it a rookie, but you could at least argue that.
Right.
Now, with Mick Schumacher, the 2020 card did not, he had not driven a race.
Well, yeah, he wasn't an F1 driver. Yeah.
Right. So now everybody knew he was going to be.
Right.
Just like everybody knew Wander Franco was going to make it to the majors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the comparison to that card, the Formula 2 drivers, and I ripped a lot of that 2020 Formula 1 Chrome, and I stocked away. I eventually, somebody bought me out of all of it, and I'm kind of kicking myself now for selling it because the values have gone up on some of those guys. But I was holding on to a lot of the Formula 2 guys.
Me too.
And Mick Schumacher was one of those guys that I was, that I was holding on, and I did that, thinking that, hey, this is, once he makes it to Formula 1, this is going to be the equivalent of having a Wander Franco Bowman's First.
Yeah.
So I think that's the appropriate way to look at it. Now, you brought up a good point, though, when we were talking about this off the air, that it's a different collector market for Formula One. And I would say I would partially agree with that, because you have the guys that have been, the traditional, hobby collectors, dealers, and so forth that have been doing Formula One, and they've really been doing it not because they're following it, but because they're in it for the money.
Yeah, they're banking.
Right. And then you also have the Formula One fans.
Yes.
That's the non-traditional, piece to it. I'm actually curious as to whether or not the guy, the traditional dealers, longtime hobbyists, that kind of stuff that started doing it, if they actually started watching Formula One.
Right.
And maybe Formula One picked up a couple of new fans, because of that.
Oh no, the race numbers online this year exploded. The amount of people that watched it were tremendous. And I think you nailed it when you said it's going to be so interesting to see, because the determination that's made from the collective hobby on this card is going to really set the precedent going forward. And if collectors are going to view this as the first Bowman, and is Topps going to, or Fanatic, whoever, are they going to keep putting out Bowman? Because I always assumed F1 would get so big that eventually the product lines would get a little out of hand. You'd have Bowman jump into F1 with F2 stuff and everything as it continued to get bigger. I was glad to see from the Topps conference this year they kept it the same, but does this, this could end up being, hey, the F2 drivers in this, these are their first Bowmans. And if that's how it is collected, and if that's how it's viewed from now on, that makes these F1 boxes and everything else that much more valuable. That makes so many more cards in the set that much more collectible.
Well, 2020 F1 is already ridiculously priced.
Oh yeah, yes.
I mean, I was ripping them at 300 a box.
300, yep.
And I thought that was high. And I got hooked because I did one box just to see what it was, and the first box I opened had the Lewis Hamilton purple.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, cool. That's all right. I'm in.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. I don't see them doing a Bowman type release for the F2 drivers, and the only reason I don't see that is if you look at how they had to make a 200 card set.
Yeah, they had to. Yeah,
there's not enough drivers.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
To be able to justify its own set, and frankly, they had to really stretch to get to that 200 cards with including the Formula 2, the Formula 1. You had the team managers that were in there. Those you had to make the team logo cards that were there. Yes. You had the Grand Prix, the race winners. You had the driver photo. Then the 1 through 20, the traditional driver photos. Then you had their cars. Yeah, and a lot of that I kind of saw as like, okay, this is kind of garbage, even though Panini's been doing it with the NASCAR stuff for a long time, and even before then Press Pass was doing a lot with the NASCAR stuff. So it's not unheard of, and I kind of expected that, but maybe make the race winners an insert, as opposed to having it be part of the base set. I just don't. I mean, I really don't know what to do with it, and produce it in the U.S. factories, because the 2020 stuff, and all the numbered cards were all jacked up because of the feeder, and it's just they don't. I think they were produced in the Italian factory.
They were.
They don't know what they're doing over there.
No.
Although I think because they do soccer too. So by the time Merlin came out, I think they started to figure it out. Yeah. But I haven't opened any of this year. Well, it's actually 2021 Formula One that's coming out now, which I hated the Topps design in 2021 for baseball.
And that's the one thing that drove me crazy, is that when I saw that this was coming out, I was like, surely they're not going to do the same design that everyone else had saw. And when I saw that was the design of 2021, I was so disappointed. And the F1 groups that I'm in, this shows you how secluded they are. There's a massive fan base that only collects F1. I'm telling you right now. Yeah. Because the amount of people that had never seen this design, or that were not used to seeing this design, blew my mind. That's where I saw that this is a different collector base. When this came out and they were like, what's up with this font? What's up with this? I'm like, this stuff has been out for a year. Yeah. And so that's when I noticed it was there's a massive segment that only collects F1. Well, I have a feeling this was supposed to probably come out like 6-7 months ago. It was.
And every product is delayed across the board. Yes. So I don't fault Topps.
No. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this rookie logo. It's going to have a major impact, I think, on how people collect, because I'm honestly wondering. I mean, obviously, people like Lewis Hamilton and stuff, you're not going to have that issue with. You've got his Futera stuff that just sold for crazy amounts, and then you've got his rookie card, or whatever you want to call it, in 2020. But all of these F2 drivers from Mick on, this could create a whole nother subset to chase after in the set. I mean, I think, to me, this is just very interesting to see where this is going to go, because it's such a new hobby. It's such a new part of the hobby that we don't have any, real things to go by on what collectors will do.
Well, that, and, just due to the nature of Formula One, you don't see that many rookies that come up every year.
Exactly.
There's maybe 1 or 2 seats that open up either, through retirement, or, just as, like the Russian driver that they picked off the circuit, that opened up another seat. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, it's like NASCAR this year. There's like 2 rookies.
Right.
And Formula One's going to be the same thing, where, okay, well, let's, all the speculators are going to be starting to shoot for the other, the other Formula 2 cards that were in 2020. Mm-hmm. And you have it's going to boost those values, on the off chance that within the next year or two, one of those guys is going to wind up, racing Formula One.
Yep.
Now, the question is, how good are they going to be?
Yes.
And we don't know.
Exactly.
There's so many different variables, because it's not, you could be the best driver in the world, but if your only way to get to Formula One is by, signing with a team that doesn't have the greatest equipment, you're not gonna be one of the top drivers because, you don't have the funding, or, your shit's breaking every week and you don't finish races and you never wind up on the podium. It's not about just winning with Formula One. It's about podium finishes, whether you're in the top three. It's very Olympic in nature.
Very much so.
Where it's different from racing in the United States, especially like NASCAR. Nobody cares who finishes second. Dale Earnhardt said it the best. Second place is just the first loser. Yeah. Formula One,
it ain't like that.
It ain't like that. If you're third every race,
you good.
Yeah. And, people will chase after you, and that's fine. It's a different sport. It's a different way of looking at it.
Right.
Like I said, it's very Olympic.
Yes.
In that case where, even the bronze medalists are celebrated, in their different sports. I mean, shit, you still lost, but you got yourself a medal, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You just don't get as big of a bottle of champagne.
Right.
At the end of the race.
Get one of those little airplane bottles to shake up instead of.
Yeah. You get the winner gets the 3-liter bottle, the shake up and spray. The second place guy gets the 750 milliliter bottle. Your standard size, and the third guy gets the little airplane bottle.
Exactly.
So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think that eventually, it'll be viewed, that missing, when it's the F2 cards are going to be viewed as, first Bowmans, or, there's no other. There really isn't
prospect card. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it.
And I kind of see it because you remember back in the 90s, Topps would put in the prospect cards. In fact, the 90 was a 93 Derek Jeter. It's not a rookie card.
It's a top prospect. Yeah,
it's top prospect. So, but that is viewed as
rookie.
Yep. That's kind of the way that I see it, is that it's going to wind up being prospect.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just to wrap it up, I think you nailed it right here. For this to be something that is truly changing, and something that'll truly be a major part in this, in the hobby, and something that collectors chase after, one of these first couple that people prospect has got to come through. They've got to come through and be big. If you don't have that guy that's a prospector that pans out, that people chase after, I think you see more people just gravitate right back to the rookies and kind of ignore it. But let's say Mick comes out, Mick starts tearing it up. I think that prospecting market builds a lot bigger. So I think the biggest thing that's going to influence it is, are these F2 guys the first ones since cards have come out that move up? Do they perform? Can they? And I don't.
I'll be completely honest with you on this one. I don't think Mick Schumacher is the proper test case for this. Guys were treating him, like an F1 driver when 2020 came out because of his name.
Yes.
Because of his father. So it's a little different than somebody who does not have some sort of family lineage, into Formula One. And that's the one that I really want to watch, is the next driver that's not a Schumacher, that was in 2020 as a Formula 2 driver, that, comes up now and is in Formula One. And I haven't looked at the 2021 product yet. It's priced. I'm priced out of it right now as far as ripping it, but I want to see if there's a guy in there who, who's in that situation.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's what's going to be most important. But we shall see what is going to happen. One thing's for sure, there's always some type of seems like there's always some type of issue with that rookie card logo. Let's get some tighter restrictions, card companies. Let's get this down. But guys, that is going to wrap up episode 139 of Let Me Get That Potograph. Once again, I'd like to thank our awesome sponsors, Vanity Slabs, Card Crusade, Vintage Breaks, and of course, Card Ladder. We could not do the show without you guys, of course, iHeartMedia. You guys also make sure to check out Hobby Hotline every single Saturday and Tuesday. I will be on this week's episode So make sure to check that out. And we'll be back next week, of course. And then a ton of live content coming to you as well as an announcement here soon where I'll be giving you all the information on everything. Let me get that autograph related at the Mick Collective, which we will be at here in a couple weeks. All right. Well, guys, baseball's back, and we will be back next week. But until then, you guys know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.